Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hi there. If you're a founder, business owner, CEO, or an aspiring CEO, I think this episode is an important one to listen to. I've just returned from a few days away with TLJ, the lovely Judy, where we went to Seville in southern Spain. Beautiful city. We're over there from Wednesday to Saturday, and it was just a real switch off. Flamenco, Cruz Campo beer, lovely. My first taste of sangria, believe it or not. And most importantly, maybe the sun. Now, we didn't have perfect weather. There was one day it was absolutely lashed out of the heavens. But the last day we were there, it was actually really warm, really sunny. The first day we were there was really warm, really sunny. Just nice to have heat on your face. And just the change of pace and the fact that there was such a rich culture there in terms of architecture, old buildings, tapas, bars, beautiful vibrancy in the city. We cycled a lot, we walked, we just rested, and rest maybe is the key word. And I suppose it inspired maybe the theme and the focus of today's episode, because it reminded me of something crucial that I think too many leaders overlook. And because I think most CEOs, most founders, most busy leaders just don't see this as a problem, but it's costing them way more than they realize. And ultimately, I suppose I'd boil it down to this, is that a tired mind causes problems. An unrested mind causes problems. A well-rested leader sees more opportunities, sees more solutions, they get clarity that an exhausted one just simply can't. And I think in today's world, 21st century leadership, we need to redefine how we see something like rest, that it isn't a luxury, it's a strategic necessity and something that we need to look at all the time, not just once or twice a year, not just we get to that retreat or whatever. It's something that's key, almost like a professional athlete, that they now see rest as training, that their rest is actually very scientific. Now, there's so many examples I could talk about with this. But one that comes to mind is where a couple of years ago, I was at a one-day event that was being hosted by an American business person that I admire and respect. It was about 20, 21, 22 leaders in the room. Everybody owned their own business. And two of the people at this particular event were given the opportunity to have a hot seat. So they got the opportunity, I think, for 20 minutes, stand up, share a problem or a challenge or an opportunity, and then get the input from the experienced minds in the room. It's kind of a common enough thing with masterminds and things like that. The second guy who got up presented a problem which, on the face of it, looked like a major problem. And I suppose it was a big problem. And the host then went around the room to get input from the different people there. Now, because of the nature of the work that I do, my job is to help aspiring CEOs, experienced CEOs, successful founders to get the edge. And usually then that means on the inner side, the mental side, the side that almost a top athlete would be looking at. When it came to me, I just said, look, actually, I don't think that's the problem. And the guy was confused and said, actually, the actual problem, I think, is that you're exhausted. And I don't think you're thinking clearly. And he said, no. And I said, well, look, if you at your best is 10 out of 10, you at your worst is 0 out of 10, why would you score yourself? And he said, I'm probably 6.5, 7. And I said, forgive me, but I think you're at a 3. I think you've lost touch with what a 7 actually is in reality, which he strongly disagreed with. But in that particular moment, the host interrupted and said, actually, I agree with Shane. Not that he had to, but this is what he said. I was thinking the same thing, but he just articulated it. And I agree with him. I think this is the real problem, which caused the speaker, the business person, to stop and go, oh. I found out afterwards that he did indeed then take a break. At the time, he had a young family, busy business, lots of people hanging out of him in terms of attention. You're trying to sell, you're trying to juggle a lot as a leader of a business. And he took a break, and that reset his entire year in a positive way. And as I'm saying that, it also reminds me of, being a young parent. I remember when the kids in particular were maybe about, I don't know, 2 and it's just a few months old. Myself and Judy, you don't really think about it because you're getting on with it, but a lot of demands, you're tired, you're exhausted, there's interruptions to sleep, there's a lot of juggling. At the time, I would have been trying to get a business grow and things like that. There's a lot on, and you don't really think about being tired. You think that's just the way it is. And I remember my sister, Catherine, offering to come over and take the kids for the night, just to look after them, which was very generous of her. And we went away to a hotel, not that far away, only I think about 25 minutes drive from where we live in Ireland. And so it wasn't far. Went away, had a little bit of time, went to the spa, got a great night's sleep, just one night, came back, I think at lunchtime the next day. So it wasn't even that long, but came back like new people. And the two of us were looking at each other thinking, oh my God, actually, this rest thing is pretty important, because we came back as new people with fresh perspectives, completely new mindset. And it just, again, simple examples where you realize, hold on a second here. The time to take breaks isn't when we're exhausted, even though it's obviously better than nothing. It's more to do before we get exhausted, that if we see rest as something that's strategically important to ourselves personally, but also in business, then it becomes something that actually grabs our attention in a different type of way. Now, there is increasingly what you might call an area, let's call it the science of rest, which sport is embracing and has embraced. That's why you have jobs now where people are employed as sleep coaches, believe it or not. So that's a real job. It didn't exist, I don't think, 10 years ago, perhaps, but it does now because there's so much science around rest. But if you think about it on a common sense level, your brain, you make better decisions when you're rested. You've got more clarity, you've got more creativity, and your problem solving ability improves. Now, your mind might go, I haven't got time to be taking rest. And what I'm going to say to you today, if you're listening, if your mind is saying that, is don't listen to it. Find a way to get a break. Find a way to switch off. Sometimes just taking even a half a day or a couple of hours, or better still even a night, or better still even a couple of days, will actually transform your business. Because if you think about it, a rested you means you're going to have a better mood, a better state. And if you've ever listened to me talk about state and mood, and you've read my book, The Inner CEO, you realize I talk about being a state champion, how critical your mood is, your energy is to your clarity and performance, and how it's also contagious. A tired you is most likely a moody you, and your mood ripples it just flows like electricity through the wires of your organization and into your family. And to kind of throw out maybe a metaphor, it's a bit like when we're tired, and we don't even realize we're tired, we're driving through a storm with foggy windows. And that's how I think a lot of leaders operate. I have to hustle, I have to grind it. But in reality, if you look at what's going on, my experience is that the harder you push, the worse the visibility gets, the foggier it gets. But if you manage to stop and clear the windshield, i.e. get some rest, suddenly everything becomes much clearer, and very often sometimes becomes obvious. Even for me this morning, coming back, you're coming out of great rest into work, there's always a little bit of, got to get going. But I've had some really great ideas while I was away, and there was a freshness to my thinking this morning. If you think about it on a simple level, like most people prioritize charging the battery of their phone more than themselves. So if your phone's on 2%, you wouldn't expect people peak performance, yet most founders, CEOs, business leaders expect themselves to function at a high level without actually genuinely recharging at a deep level. So a question for you is, how rested are you really? And when was the last time you truly stepped away, not just physically now, but mentally? We could have gone to Seville, myself and Judy, and I could have gone there and still be tuned into emails and everything else. No, I didn't want that, because a day off is 24 hours off all connection with work, in my experience, because I'm giving my mind a chance to completely detach from what? From the thinking about my business. Because that's very often the part that's exhausting us. The relentless problems to solve, the relentless demands, it gets never done in business. You're never actually done. But what would change if you, in the next few days, if you prioritize your own energy levels, if you actually meaningfully prioritize your rest? Like, what's the one thing you could do over the next few days? Maybe it's time out to go for a walk. Maybe it's time for better sleep. Maybe you need to book a holiday. The reality is, though, as I said earlier on, is you don't need to take a long vacation or holiday to reset right now. You could be one night away, could be a half day off, could even be a short walk, could be a swim. What is it for you? The other thing I want to throw in here as well is that sometimes, and this is what I found in Seville, is that a new environment is a great distraction because your mind has never been there before. It's new. It holds your attention. It makes it easier to detach from thinking about life and work and your problems. There was such a richness for all the senses in terms of the visuals, the smells in particular. There was some great food there, the sounds, the bustling streets, different languages. There was so many different nationalities in the city. It was just a great way to distract my mind from the normal thinking. And then the other thing is, there was a time when people would never put a gym session into their work. Now it's become commonplace, I think, and seen as a good thing for a lot of leaders to have their gym time, they have their exercise time very often in their day, which is brilliant. Use that for reset, use it for switching the mind off, use it for re-energizing. But what if you put in off time in your diary, just like you would a key business meeting? Off time. And maybe that off time is just quiet time. Maybe it's just time to go for a walk, clear the mind. There's a time, I think, where you would have seen that perhaps people see it as wasting time or you're just not working. That's not the case anymore. The most valuable time for a founder, CEO, business owner, aspiring leader, aspiring CEO is high quality thinking time. And more people are starting to realize that high quality thinking time is when you actually switch off your thinking mind. And when you switch off your thinking mind, you tap into the gold that is down there in your unconscious mind. That's where the eureka moments come from, the mind shifts, the little epiphanies, sometimes big epiphanies. So it's worth considering. That's why I often say to clients, taking a day off, taking a week off, taking a few days off can make you money, because that's very often where the big ideas come in. So in that way, that's one of the reasons I'm saying that a more rested you isn't a nice to have. It's a strategic priority. I'd love if there was somebody on a board listening to this, perhaps looking at their CEO who's tired and busy and trying to do everything, that maybe they would think, hang on, the single biggest risk to this business is an underperforming CEO. Maybe I need to have a chat with them about some of this. Maybe you need to share this particular podcast episode with them. Because the reality is that we don't need more time, because that's what people will say, no, I need more time to do this. You need more clarity. And clarity actually comes from a more rested you. That's it for this week. Ciao for now.